Good morning. So I have explored combinations this week. And some of these combinations like salt, sodium chloride, separately, they're toxic. When you combine them just right, you get something that can nourish our body. Vinegar and oil dressing with the right seasonings. Preferably with seasoning, because I think by itself it would, But it's those two things that separately, just oil by itself, just vinegar by itself is kind of But when combined together, it's good. Peanut butter and chocolate. When you combine these things, it is And heart and mind. When you connect the two, when you combine them together, it is more powerful than if they were by themselves. This week we'll be talking about the third principle. Our thoughts have creative power to influence events and determine our experiences. So our thoughts in our brain are powerful enough on their own, by themselves. But then when you connect it with the heart space, you're more than likely, if I was a statistician, I would say probably 99% more likely to be more powerful when you connect your heart space and your mind space together. And I got to thinking about all of the things that go on in our world that is it a mind-only thing? Is it a mind and heart thing? Especially with some of the headlines we've had lately. And I think about how the synergy of it all might work together. And I got curious about synergy, so I had to look it up so I can give you the wonderful Webster definition of synergy. The cooperation of two or more substances to produce and combine an effect greater than the sum of their separate effects. Synergy. Then I got to thinking about, is it possible that Jesus ever experienced a time where things weren't completely synergetic between mind and heart space? And immediately what came to mind was the 40 days in the wilderness with temptation. And so I had a little fun because I was like, ooh, this is going to be a juicy one metaphysically. It's going to be, yes. So when we look at the wilderness, it is a state of undisciplined thoughts. So basically your mind's just kind of amuck. It's taken whatever tidbit of information that probably brings your most heightened emotion, and you're stuck to it. And then Satan in this story brings the deceiving state of mind and personality that tempts. So it's that your need to anybody ever get wrapped around the axle about something? So much so that it's in your dream state. Lately, with things that I've been thinking about and having to reset, I've had dreams where I'm having to I put in a full day's work before I even wake up because I'm fixing things. I can't remember what it is I'm fixing, but I'm constantly having to fix it and make it better. And so it made me realize often what you preach on you're going to experience. And so I'm looking at myself this week going, okay, I need to adjust maybe what I do or what I think about, especially before going to bed. Scrolling through Facebook's probably not a good idea for me right now before I go to sleep. And the 40 days, in some instances, it's a time of trial. In other instances throughout the Bible, because there's many 40-day stories, it's a time of transformation. And so I think about Jesus in that 40 days and what was going on in the world then, and it is, you had Roman takeover, Roman expansion, you have religion and governance mixing together, you have hierarchies of belief and otherness. And it's not any different than anywhere in any state of the world at any point in time. If you look for it, you're going to always find it until you look for what you want to see to bring it out more. Your thoughts create your reality. It's that third principle. Charles Fillmore shares, I did slide this one. Wisdom associates itself with love and can be found in its purity only at the heart center. Hence, we speak of the still small voice within. If you're going at it to find out what God wants you to do and you're only coming at it from here, you're not going to get the full story. You need to connect the two. So what about those things, those thoughts that hit our heart space that are, they make our hearts sad? The airplane crashes this week. 2 major events that they just sunk to my heart space. And then it's where I go and I look at, thank God for the first responders, knowing that what they're going into is not pretty, but they're still serving to bring closure and love for people who are going to need it at that time. And I look at things that collectively kind of stir, and I look at things like hatred, oppression, exclusion. And when you recognize those and you realize that they make your heart space sad or angry or frustrated, that is your call. And this is where the transformation happens within yourself so that you can have the transformation outside of yourself. You take the uneasy response and you thank it. Thank you, thing that I don't like, because you awaken something in me that triggers my thought in my heart space to connect with the divine so that I can determine who I am to be, what I am to do. And when we awaken to that, we seek the action that's needed, and we transmute all of that into energy that is aligned with the divine. We're not meant to be spectators. We're not meant to go, oh, that's unfortunate, and keep moving on. There's a quote by Martha Smock that states, "Wisdom is not static. It engenders action." She was a Unity minister and a great Unity author. And when I look at this, I started thinking about the Trinity as well. And Unity has, through all the studies, I had one of my reverend teachers share with me, as you're looking, look for all of the Trinities because there's more than one. And there are. One of them is, you get your idea from divine mind. It speaks to your head space, you've got your idea. When you connect it to your heart space, it brings you to that what you're knowing to do, which brings it outward to expression or demonstration. Eric Butterworth shared in Unity, the Quest for Truth, all the powers of heaven and earth cannot help us unless they help us to change or control our thought. For as you think in your heart, that is what you are. When you look up and you search the power of wisdom, which is going to be your third one in yellow, wisdom isn't only just brain thought. Wisdom is that connection of mind and heart space, is the connection altogether. So with every thought that we have, there's this radiation of energy. Back, not there yet. So in Jesus Christ Heals, another Charles Fillmore, he shares that if a person is untrained in thinking and lets his mind express all kinds of thoughts without control, he not only uses up his thought stuff, the most ordinary word I've heard Charles Fillmore ever use. Thought stuff. And I was like, huh. But fails also to accomplish any helpful result. And so I think about that in my week where I've had these, whatever it is I've been concerned about, and then I read news feeds that aren't quite settling for me, and then I go right off to sleep, and I've thought about the things that clutter the mind, that keep you separated from the vine, and then my subconscious goes, oh, while you're sleeping, go ahead and fix some of this stuff that's not even real, it's just imaginary in your subconscious for now. And then you wake up and go, oh, I'm tired, I haven't even done my day yet. And then I look back to where in class this week we had to do a meditation. And one of the things was I had people, kind of like what we did in our meditations last week, see yourself that you've just woken up, you've got out of bed, you see yourself, bed head, sleep in your eyes all squinty, you haven't even done a thing, and you're good. And my colleagues told me, I like that you brought that in, that before we even do a thing, we acknowledge our goodness. And I think if we start our day with that becomes our first thought, that it can set forth and kind of help you navigate all the other random thoughts that we're bombarded with through the rest of the day. And so it kind of brings you to, how do we do this? And so one of the scriptures that came to mind is in the epistles. So this is Paul talking to the Philippians. And he says, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, anything excellent and praiseworthy, think on these things. And I remember a time when I had a bad dream. So think of it like back to 1984. Yep. We were living with my great-grandmother at the time, and it was about the time when nuclear war was the topic of everything. And my mom was working the night shift at South Austin Hospital. And so she would come in about 11:30, midnight. And when she came in that night, I was awake and scared because I had a dream that there were military soldiers on every street corner. I was 12. And I was scared. And I'm like, Mom, what's going to happen? So Mom coming in from her long day of work, she goes, honey, think about something you like. Think about something good. And I went, I really like watermelon. Who would have thought watermelon would be a transforming thought? But for me, at the age of 12, I was eating watermelon at the end of the dock at my grandma's house, and I was at peace. What we think about creates our reality. In that moment, my mom, doing the mom thing, brought me to that peace that I was able to fall back to sleep on. Watermelon. It's magical. And so I get to thinking about how we do this in our adulthood. How do we turn that tide of thoughts of, I don't like this, I want to acknowledge it, and I want to figure out what to do. So acknowledge that thing that's out there that brings you to that uneasy thought. I prefer the word acknowledge instead of accept, because for me, accept means go, yeah, okay, let it be. Acknowledging for me means, oh, there's that, but you don't want it to stay that. And then bring it inward so that you can transform your system, your being, noticing in your body how you're feeling. Are your muscles tight? Are there parts in your body that feel uncomfortable? Like, notice them, pay attention to them. That's kind of that somatic thing that he was talking about. it's that. Notice how your body responds to it. But then bring in the good thought, like the positive thing that you thought about during meditation, and recognize and feel how that, so like in this, you would think the polar opposite of whatever the negative thing was. So if it's war, peace. And then you recognize that peace is talking to those parts in your body that are feeling the negative response from the negative thought. And then when you recognize your body's response, take that into divine mind. That time in the silence where God is speaking to you, because it could be God saying things like, yours to do right now is to recenter yourself for a week, a month. Just recenter. It could be that once you've reached that point to where you're like, okay, I acknowledge the things, they're there, I know where my power is, and now where do I move it into expression? Where do I demonstrate the truth that we've been empowered to do? That's the important part. We have been empowered to do what God brings to our divine download. God doesn't, I'm going to say it backwards accidentally. God doesn't call the equipped. He equips the called. That one. And then you go forth and you create a world that's divinely inspired. Because like I talked about last week, it's magnetic. You'll see it more. You'll resonate it more. So you will be it, you will receive it, you will give it. You'll be it, you'll receive it, and you'll give it. I'm remembering this week to put this out. So this is your spiritual exploration for the week. So I put your third principle on there, some of the scriptures that I referred to, and then here's your questions for your exploration. Have you been tempted in the wilderness? In what ways did you turn from that error thought? And then meditate on how to not allow error thought of others as seen in oppression or other things that are negative have an effect on your moves that bring us to move ourselves into error thought. Journal your divine download and take action that produces God-good aligned results. And then we have, for today, our transformation. Affirmation. So what we'll do is say this 3 times. We usually get excited the more times we say it. And the reason that we say it 3 times is because the more you say it, the more your voice vibrates those words. That way your body receives the transmission, and it's more likely to stick with you. In God's infinite abundance, I co-create and transform. In God's infinite abundance, I co-create and transform. In God's infinite abundance, I co-create and transform. So it is. Shine on, y'all.